live. We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hello, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. I want to thank everybody for all of the thoughts and prayers and well wishes. I think what I've got is a muscle issue. It's not a lung issue. It is more of a muscle thing. And I think what it boils down to, it's going to sound ridiculous, and it kind of dovetails into what we're talking about this evening. But I think I've probably told people in the past, I don't sit, right? Plain and simple, I really just don't sit. And, if I watch TV, I do it squatting down. I'm not someone that sits, and I haven't done it in, I can't tell you how long. I have been sort of on this don't sit kick. And my new business / hobby requires a great deal of sitting. And I've been pulling probably 12 to 14 hour days working on watches, which is not something you can really do standing up, right? You take apart a watch, it's a very small little thing, and you work with big time magnification, and you have to do it in the seated position. And I think that sitting for what turned out to be dozens and dozens of hours, not just sitting, but sort of hunching over, may be the cause of my problem. Today, I spent considerably less time engaged in that position, and I seem to be doing a little bit better. We're going to see what happens going forward. If it's a muscular thing, unfortunately, it is something that you just sort of have to ride out. I know a lot of people have emailed me and direct messaged me and asked questions about, being very concerned because if I'm short of breath, there's a lot of bad things that can mean, especially currently. I'm not short of breath. If I look like I am, it's because it really hurts when I take in a deep breath, but I don't have a problem filling my lungs up when I need to. It's just sort of painful. So I've been doing a little bit more shallow breathing, but that's enough of that. But thank you. I appreciate everybody's prayers. I really do. And all the well wishes and advice. I appreciate it from everybody. Today, I wanted to talk about something that, all the time, the recurring theme here on the lifeboat is that the coping mechanisms that we need in order to get through living a sober life. And one of the things that we talk about all the time is that, if you create new memories and you create new points of contact that are different than what you did in the past, that is a coping mechanism, right? And one of the things that has come up recently from a couple of different people on the boat, some of the people who are really successful currently with not just sobriety, but life, right? Living their best life, are people who are starting to engage in things that in the past they have not done. You may remember it was the first week of December, and I was talking about New Year's resolutions because I thought starting a New Year's resolution a month early was something that, not too many people do. And it seemed like a fairly good idea. And Steve, that would be Seventh Son Steve, had a really great post where he talked about wanting to see people have a New Year's resolution that had nothing to do with weight loss, or had nothing to do with getting sober, or had nothing to do with any of the things that most New Year's resolutions are about. He wanted to see people pick something new, something fun, a New Year's resolution to learn a new language, or a New Year's resolution to learn how to cook something. I believe he was working on the ultimate enchilada, wanted to learn how to make that appropriately. And I have really begun to believe that as far as points of contact being something that is really good for your brain in terms of creating new memories and staying sober, I think it is one of the most solid things that a person can do. I really am starting to wholeheartedly buy into this as something that, as opposed to learning all of the different things to do and to for coping skills and learning all of these different things. So oftentimes idle hands, we talk about this constantly, but if you have time on your hands, if you're sitting around doing nothing, you spend an awful lot of that time allowing the ants to go wild and crawl all over your brain. These automatic negative thoughts start to break you down and start trying to talk you in to doing things that are not in your best interest. They try to get you back onto your drug of choice. And by creating new hobbies and doing new things, there are some people on this lifeboat who are also fans of my brother, right? Who watch Johnny over on Chase the Heat. And you will see that my brother began a very long time ago playing the guitar, and he jokes that he's the happiest, worst guitarist in the world. He doesn't, consider himself someone that's ever going to be able to, do anything other than have fun with a guitar. But boy, does he have fun with a guitar. And as he has gotten more successful, he has gone and purchased some of the things that, some of the guitars that he really dreamed of when he was younger, right? So now he has a collection of Gibson Les Pauls, and playing them is an outlet for him that brings him more joy than anything that he does. Truthfully, I mean, I know Johnny really well. Nothing makes him happier than playing the electric guitar, and it got me thinking. And I'll be honest, when I started into the watch thing, this was not in any way something that I wanted to get into because I thought it was going to be a coping mechanism. But I'm finding that I've never been happier. Right? This is something that I truthfully am in bliss when I'm doing, whether I'm looking stuff up, whether I'm working on it, whether I'm cataloging it, things that would drive me insane if I was doing it with anything else. Like if I had a job where I had to sit down and look up the dates of, 200 items, find out when they were made, where they were made, I would quit that job within a few minutes. It's not something that I would be able to do. But I could do this till the end of time. And it really is, although it's becoming a vocation, it really is a hobby and a passion. And I think that one of the things that is just a absolute banner idea for people in recovery is to find a passion, something that is not something you were doing in your previous life. And this should not be difficult because most people in their previous life had one passion, right? Their drug of choice. And very oftentimes, if you go back before the drug addiction, there were passions that we all gave up on. There were things that we all really cared about. I had a friend in Salt Lake City who was a heroin addict, and he worked with me for years. And when we first started working together, he was not using. He was a mountain climber. This man probably had $25,000 worth of mountain climbing equipment. And he had managed to climb some of the, some of the more rugged places in America that are considered, very difficult climbs and sort of rite of passage kind of places. He did El Cap. He did some of the other ones that are just really tough climbs. And as he got addicted to heroin, one of the first things that happened was that equipment got sold. And it got sold for far less than it was worth, but he could continue to go out and sell this stuff to continue to get high. And this happens to a lot of people. They sell off their collections of things. They sell off their passions. They pawn things, right? All of these things end up lost. I think that when you gain sobriety, gaining back the things that you cared about or creating new ones is absolutely the best idea that you can have, because it's one thing to come up with something to do during your idle time to make sure that you're not thinking about drugs. It is completely another to be in love with what you do during that time, to have a passion for what is taking up your extra time. Mr. T, you guys know him as DJ Daddy-O. Here, one of the people on the lifeboat. I'm going to share a little. DJ Daddy-O and I correspond with one another often. We are of the same age, graduated from high school the same year. We have a great deal in common. And he was very inspired by Alan Ballantyne, as was a lot of us. And he wanted to work on weight loss, and he has. The man has knocked 20 pounds off already. So hats off, the virtual high five for DJ Daddy-O, because that's impressive stuff, and he's just getting started. Very, very excited about it, and I think that's awesome. But that being said, in one of his emails, he also said, "You know what? And I'm thinking of taking the guitar back up." And it was funny because I was putting together the thoughts for this particular show, and it occurred to me that as we start to do things right, this is something that usually comes up anyway. So let's just short circuit that and start right from Jump Street. If you're just getting sober now, start thinking about the things that you used to care about, or things that, like I shared the other night. Jack said to me, "It's so cool seeing you working with watches, because you said to me 100 times, if you could do it all over again." People, you can do it all over again. That's really what getting sober is all about, is doing it all over again. And I don't care if you're 70 or 17, you're starting a new life. There's no reason not to delve into that passion. Niall says, addicts are always passionate. We used and drank because we felt we were not worthy to be here. We were confused addicts, and the most moral people on earth. You know something? There really is something to be said for addicts and passion. There really is. And it, look at rock and roll. Look at the people that created a lot of the greatest music that we ever cared about. Unfortunately, I think people on this planet confuse the fact that they believe that drugs makes these people creative. And that simply isn't the case. They were passionate about something that they cared about, and unfortunately, they found drugs, and drugs, helped to fuel that. The guitarist Stevie Ray Vaughan, the incredible American guitarist, died in a helicopter crash after a concert. But I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan, I think 4 times in concert, and 2 of the concerts were pretty good. One was absolutely awful, and one was one of the best concerts I ever saw in my life. And the one that was the best, he came out and he said, "For those of you who have seen me in concert before, I want to apologize, because I was never really what I could have been." And he talked about sobriety. He talked about finding God. And then he played the guitar it was absolute magic. He put on a 3-hour show, and fairly famously, when he passed away and they were trying to identify Stevie Ray, because the crash had caused some real damage to the people. His brother said, "Look for a New Testament on the inside pocket of his coat. He'll be carrying it." This was a guy that was a rock and roll partier, but found passion again, not just in what he was doing, but in spirituality and life in general. It's a crying shame that he got taken when he did, because I think he was really just hitting his stride in terms of being awesome. But today, I want everybody to start thinking about the things that they wish that they had done when they were younger. Like, boy, I wish I had done this. I wish I had taken up that. I wish I had learned this language. Because I'm telling you, people, when you eliminate drugs and alcohol out of your life, I don't mean for the average person that's just walking around having a few beers. I'm talking about people who were addicted, people who lived that life. When you eliminate that, one of the toughest things about sobriety, when you first get clean, is you got a lot of time on your hands, right? The average addict was spending 6 to 8 hours a day either working on getting drugs, right? Doing drugs, or sitting around wasted on drugs. It made up 24 hours in your day, right? Every single day. So when you eliminate that out of your life, there is this void. There is this huge void. What do I do now? This is something that I wrestled with. It's one of the reasons that there's a lifeboat, people. It really is. I wanted new points of contact. I firmly believed, and I've said this many times, this is not my theory. This is a theory that was espoused by a guy that wrote a really amazing book about how the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. And I had read that book while working on getting clean. And I think I was maybe a year or two sober when I read that book. But even when I was in prison, every day was me striving to get points of contact. So between reading and studying addiction and putting a group together of people that I could go and talk to, all of these things were what I was working on constantly. It's mostly about overcoming and moving forward. That's sobriety. Michael, I could not agree more. It absolutely is. But once again, as you start to move forward, you're going to have an amazing amount of time on your hands. Not you, the addict. I know that you're, not you are a counselor, if I remember correctly. So as you move forward as an addict, one of the things that we all struggle with is this idle time. And idle time is the devil's workshop, or the devil's playground, or the devil's hands. I don't remember what that quote is. Do you remember that, Mark? It's something like that, right? Yeah, I don't know exactly. One of those was right. Okay. But yeah, there's so much idle time. And I have found that for me, between the things that I'm passionate about, spending time with family, the whole, horology thing with the watches, and the lifeboat, which takes, a tremendous amount of time. I think, Mark would back me up on this. If all I did was show up here, get on the air and talk, this would be 7 hours a week, which most people don't put into the average hobby. But it is considerably more than that, because the work that we do on the lifeboat is not these live feeds. These live feeds are getting an opportunity to hang out with the people that we care about here on the lifeboat, and to hopefully find new people. The majority of the work, so to speak, idle hands are the devil's work. Thank you, Niall. I knew somebody would get that for me. You're right. It would be Niall, wouldn't it? Vivian P. I do not believe I've had a chance to welcome you to the lifeboat. Glad that you're here. I'm sure that the crew did, because they're excellent at that. But welcome to the lifeboat. Filling up. Who did I miss? Okay. All right. Well, anybody new to the lifeboat this evening, I want to thank you and welcome you. But that's what we do. The purpose of these videos is to, I don't know, the word recruit might be the right word, but to find individuals who are trying to fight the good fight and get sober. That's really what we do. But the majority of, like-minded individuals who are all trying to pull toward the same goal. But hey, Joe Birdwell, good to see you. But the majority of the air quotes work that gets done, as being the two guys that run the lifeboat, are things that happen after the show stops. It's answering comments, it's answering emails, it's reaching out to people who are going through it. That really is what takes up the majority of the time. And it's the best part of what we do. It's the real, interaction. This is fun. It really is. But the real work, I think, the real stuff that makes you feel like you're getting something done, is the stuff that happens when we're not here. But Places of the Erased. Oh, Voices of the Erased. Welcome, Voices of the Erased. We're glad you're here. And I do want to give a shout out to Steve, because I think that Steve's comment way back in December was really awesome. I think a great piece of advice for everybody. Obviously, January 1 is come and gone, but I think that's a great New Year's resolution, to pick something that you want to become passionate about and dive into it. Something fun, because for the most part, when we make resolutions, let's be honest, they're things that you have to stick to. They're not things that you want to stick to, right? I'm making a New Year's resolution to not eat chocolate. I'm going to make a New Year's resolution to quit smoking. I'm going to make a New Year's resolution to lose weight. I'm going to make it. None of those things, making a New Year's resolution to find something that you are passionate about and that you love, and play with it, right? Find something that you really groove and really groove to, and then spend time, at that particular thing. That is a great piece of advice. I don't know that I gave Steve enough credit for that. I really think that this is something that is key. And again, let's think about it logically. How often here on the Lifeboat do we spend our time talking about how we need to cope with the bad things that arise when you're getting sober? That is really the focus. That is almost the, I would say, 60-70% of everything we talk about is how to get through the tough times. I love to connect with others on a human scale. It takes work to know another addict, and it takes time, but it is worth it. Niall, it's really kind of funny that you said that. Somebody, and I won't say who, but somebody really recently said to me, Niall has really sort of blossomed into a different person in how he interacts with the people on the Lifeboat. And I'll be really honest, more than one person has said that. And all of them said it as a compliment. They love how you interact with the people on the boat. And I'll be really honest, people, this was another thing that Mark and I talked about in the beginning that, we hoped would happen at some point down the road, was that there would be people that rise to the occasion and sort of reach out to help people who are in need. And it happens. And there's a lot of you that do it, but Niall has pinch hit for me, so to speak. There have been many times where people were trying to get a hold of me, and for one reason or another, I wasn't able to. And very often, I'll be honest with you, I think that maybe they got the better end of the deal on those days that they missed me, because Niall's insight is, and this is indicative of a lot of people on the Lifeboat. One of the things about addiction is that when you survive it and you pop out on the other side, and you're living a sober life, you bring with you a storehouse of knowledge on what it takes to get where you're at. This is why 12-step programs, whether you like them or not, this is why 12-step programs work. Because as people, I don't want to use the word graduate, because obviously no one graduates from a 12-step program, but as people matriculate through the steps, when they get to that last step, and they start really trying to give back, that's the dream of the 12-step programs. And I think that's why they've been so successful, is they begin to take care of themselves, so to speak. They spawn these small groups all over the world. And as people get sober, they become the leaders of those groups, and they are always there for the other people that need them. And the Lifeboat has become that in a very big way. There are so many people here that are so helpful. And one of the things that's a dead giveaway is the way people are greeted when they show up here. I think that really, honestly, if I had $1 for every time somebody has said to me, I can't believe just how nice everybody was to me on the Lifeboat, I would probably buy a very expensive watch. It is why people come back. You're absolutely right. Yeah. No, there's no two ways about it. Oh, 1 second. Low self-esteem is the devil's work. I'm getting sober and starting to get stable. Um, sorry, building grapes is a good thing to do, and watches repairs to fill my. Okay, yeah, exactly. Uh, Once you start to get sober, having anything, building vapes, building whatever anything that you're doing with your hands, anything that you're doing with your mind, anything that you're doing that requires concentration. People, if you've got something disassembled and you're in the process of putting it back together, you're not thinking about drugs, right? If you've got something that you're painting, or you've got something that you're writing music, you're not thinking about getting high while doing these things. And this is not rocket science. You've heard Mark talk about this 100 times. You've heard me quote it 100 times. Your brain's not going to think about two things at the same time. So having points of connection, a hobby, a passion, something you're researching. There are people now that are working with me on the projects that I'm doing, and I've got one or two people that basically just chase down research. And the really funny thing is, they love it. They're not into watches, but they love the whole concept and the passion of trying to find out the history of anything. For these individuals, I could have been saying to them, here, and one is a relative, but has just sort of catching a passion, not necessarily for what it is that we're doing, but for the process of what it takes to go online and find out the history of something, and find out people. There is such a golden opportunity in sobriety. There really is. There is such a golden opportunity to start becoming a sponge and just start bringing in all of these, this knowledge about whatever it is you're passionate about. When I was incarcerated, I was obviously very limited in the things that I could research. I could research anything there was a book on, but if I wanted to research something that there wasn't a book on, I had to buy it. And then buying that book is not like walking into a Barnes and Noble and saying, I'll take that, and going outside and reading it. If you're passionate about something and you see something in the bargain books catalog and you say, boom, I want this watch guide, right? And I bought books like that while I was in there. 3 to 4 months later, they would arrive, right? That'll take the wind out of your sails. The day you buy it, you're fired up. Fortunately, there was somebody there willing to give me all of the books that they had concerning addiction. This was something that I could research, and I became immensely passionate about it. And it was all right there. I had the ability, and it was just, I'm telling you, people, when you're coming off of an addiction, your brain wants to give you endorphins for something. You understand this, right? Your brain wants to hand you reward chemicals. Now, since we have been working with a malfunctioning reward center for a very long time, your brain wants you to do something stupid. Your brain would like you to get a beer, go get some drugs, do what you've been doing for so long, because it is like Pavlov's dog, right? It is a response that has been trained. But once you break away from that, your brain will start to function the way it is supposed to. When I get one of these things taken apart and I put it back together and it's ticking, the level of the level of endorphin dump that I get from that. You know what I mean? It's like the scene from Castaway, right, where he made the fire and he's running around yelling, "I have made fire." Okay, I get the same kind of a feeling when I'm able to take one of these Swiss little timepieces and get it put back together and start working. To me, that's a ticking heart. These things have, I could go on for days. I won't, but the point is they could. And if you find something that you're passionate about, something that you could talk about for hours at a time, you need to push into that. You need to dive into the things that are making you passionate. Seventh Son, have you mastered is it an empanada? What was it that you were trying to figure out how to cook, if I could remember? Easy to do. Get a piece of wood, some chisels, and try to make a spoon. You know what? Anything, right? Literally anything. Uh, in the federal prison system, there is a couple of different programs for sobriety. And I'll be really honest with you, most of them are awful, truthfully, awful. But there are one or two of them that are very difficult to get into. And by that, I mean, it's not with some of them, if you go, hey, I'd like to do this program, they'll put you in it. With others, you need to actually apply and you need to write a few essays telling them why you think you should be allowed into this program. You give up an awful lot to be in this program. Times that you would normally be able to go outside, work out, do certain things, that's all gone. You're signing up, you're giving even more of your freedom up, I guess is the best way to put it. But the people that do it are very serious about wanting to get sober, and you end up surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals. And one of the things that they did as soon as we got in there is they said, you're going to learn to crochet. And, you know, these are guys, a great deal of them with, you know, swastika tattoos on their neck. And when you can see these people sitting there with their crochet hooks and, you know, and their needles and crocheting. And what we did was we crocheted blankets and hats, and we did it for the homeless. But the purpose of it was what they called it in the program was just philanthropy. It was giving back. But what they were really doing was and I didn't realize it at the time, but what they were doing was they were making sure that you had to dedicate a certain number of hours every single day to something, right? They were ensuring that whether you wanted to or not, you just got a hobby. Because and once you do this for about a month, the next thing they do is they assign a larger project of the same type, and they give you a partner. This was also genius, because if you've ever done this, there's a certain pattern that you get into, right? As you're doing it, your hands sort of get into a pattern. Every single person will create a different length and size of stitch, depending on how you do it. Now, it's all the same. Your stitches are all the same. But if Mark were doing it and I'm doing it, those two rows won't match up because we do it differently. And it forced us to take a partner and sit down and figure out how you could make this work with just, you know, two different people doing two different things. It required compromise. It required all of these things that, again, at the time, just seemed like a real pain in the backside. But hindsight being 2020, it literally was genius. They were forcing us to learn how to work with people that we very rarely would work with. And in this particular program, one of the first things they told us when we walked through the door was all of that racist crap. The first time any of that pops up in this building, you guys are gone. If we tell a white guy that he's living with a black guy, you do it. The first time you look crooked about it, you're gone. And it was amazing. It really was, because you would see guys who were, you know, literally, you know, members of white supremacist gangs sitting down with, you know, a guy who was a Blood or a Crip. And the two of them were working on figuring out how they were going to either lengthen or shorten, you know, one person's stitch on this crochet so that they could get this blanket done and get it done within a time that had been assigned. And honestly, people, the kind of healing that was going on because of this was insane. The success that they had in that program, I can honestly say that it was one of the only places that I had ever been in the federal system where I didn't see anybody getting high. And it wasn't because, you know, they were vicious with the drug test. They were vicious with drug tests everywhere. The difference was that these people were getting it. Like, they were really starting to figure it out. And one of the things was there wasn't a whole lot of idle time. Like, they just straight didn't allow it. They had our days scheduled down to the minute. And this is one of the things. Remember the video that we did on organization, right? When I talked about organizing your life as an addict, this is one of the things that I was talking about. I talked about scheduling the day in such a way so you don't have downtime, because that downtime is going to kill you. That downtime is going to drive you back to using drugs. Make no mistake, people. I'm not a rocket scientist. This is not a concept that you know, Tommy Scoville just came up with. This is a stone cold fact. and everybody in the sobriety game will agree with me. And that's rare because very few people agree with anybody in this game. But nobody is going to sit here and tell you that the more downtime you got, the better a chance you got of staying sober. That quite simply has never been uttered, because the more time you've got on your hands, the more likely you are for your hands to get on booze or drugs, plain and simple. So as you're starting to put this together and you're starting to schedule your day, I talk about it, right? Sick of hearing it. So you get up, you make your bed, right? You do the things that sort of start this whole process off. Inevitably, there's going to be times in the day where, let's say you're working an 8-hour job. You get home, you cook, you eat, you do the dishes, and then what? And then from about 5:30 or 6 o'clock until about 10 o'clock at night, what do? Well, most people will plop down in front of a television set and they will dive into, to sitting there. People, if you're watching something that is enthralling and you are engaged in it and it really is holding your attention, that's fine. There are people for whom their passion is old movies, or there are people for whom their passion is comedies. That there's nothing wrong with that if that's the hobby. But if you're plopping yourself in front of a television set to allow you to sit back and let your mind wander, let loose the ants. You understand? I used to love movies. I really did. I was a big watcher of movies. Mark and I were just discussing this because we were talking about the metaverse. I'm sorry, one second here. In retrospect, you were lucky in prison. I doubt that would have happened in Guatemala or Mexico City. There is beauty in the pain in your lungs. Sit down more. I'll tell you something. The best thing that ever happened to me was going to prison. It's not, I certainly, you don't feel like that at the time, right? Because it's violent and it's, and it's dangerous, and all of the things in life that you love that you take for granted are all removed from you. And, but I remember an old guy in there that, they used to call Buddha, very philosophical, older gentleman. But he said, you realize that there are people who literally pay unbelievable amounts of money to travel, to go to places like Tibet, where they will give up everything that they've got and put themselves into a hut or into a cave where they have no amenities and the food is awful and everything, so that they can find themselves. Well, throw a little violence in there and that's prison, right? They're going to lock you in a small square room. And you definitely have an opportunity to find yourself. And you're right, in a place like Guatemala or any place else, this would have been, and to be really honest, before we give them too much credit, the number of people who are able to get into a program like the one I was just talking about, whereas 75 to 85% of that prison needs to be in that program graduates 108 people a year out of 200,000 in the prison system. So, yes, I was very lucky, not just because it was available, but because I was accepted. I write a fairly good letter and I was pretty serious about it. But before I went down the rabbit hole, I was talking about the films and the cerebral infarction, the traumatic brain injury that, that I'm suffering with, has made it so that films are done, right? I can't enjoy films anymore. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. It's these days, and I've talked about this many times on the air. My brain, like I still watch documentaries, and there are things that I can still enjoy. If you find a movie that was made before 1950, right? Old 40s and 50s movies used to be shot in 25 to 35 second clips of film, and then they would edit it, and then there would be another one. And these days, it's 2 to 3 seconds, before the edit goes from one to the next. And quite simply, my brain can't handle it. And within 3 or 4 minutes of watching a film like that, especially if it's something super modern, like you put on Fast and Furious or James Bond or an action film that's just, one edited scene after another, it takes about 4 or 5 minutes and I've got a headache that I can't explain. So that's just been, it certainly has removed something from my life that I used to enjoy. The good news is, I've got hobbies now between the lifeboat, what I'm doing for work, the collecting of watches, which not only the selling part, but I'm building quite a nice collection as well. And, cleaning them and playing with them and all of that is really giving me an opportunity to focus on things that aren't drugs. And I think that's really the message tonight is everybody needs to get it's so easy in sobriety to sit and think about nothing other than the fact that you're sober, right? To sit and think about nothing other than the fact that you're fighting to stay sober. If that's how you're going to do your sobriety, we have a name for that, right? We call it white knuckling it. And it doesn't work very well, right? I'm sober, right? That thing isn't going to work. So try to fill your time with something that you love, something that you're passionate about. And I think that will go a long way to helping. There are two types of people. Those who know and those who don't. 10% of your life was spent in prison. You survived because you knew. You know what, Niall? That's a beautiful thing to say. Really, it is. And I think you're right. You know what I mean? And people, by way of full disclosure, I didn't figure it out the first time around, and I didn't figure it out the second time around. The first two times that I was incarcerated, they were very short sentences, and all I did was get high. The third one, that was the one that got me. That was the one that by then I knew, I guess, to use Niall's eloquent terminology. Now we are. It's funny. I got to watch if you could see all of the places, if you could see from this side, there are 500 different watches somewhere on this table that are telling me what time it is. Anyway, Mark, this is about the time of the day where I turn things over to my bobble-headed partner, who I can see.
Yeah.
Sobriety is freedom. Now, you're absolutely right, and you can be free in prison. I watched it. Well done. So, Mark, how are you, my brother?
I'm doing all right. How's everybody else?
Yeah, I'm not hearing you.
Got me now? You got me now, don't you?
Still not hearing you.
Don't hear me? Really?
Well, I may not be turning this over to my bobble.
Hold on, I got you.
There we go.
I was muted on Zoom. My bad. Nope.
It happens to the best of us.
My bad.
So how are you, Mark?
I'm living, man. Living
Mark,
large.
any cool announcements?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got a couple cool announcements, guys.
I love it.
I tell you what, hold on. Let me see if I can't get my ugly mug on the screen here real quick.
Yes, they're happier when your mug is on the screen.
Okay. Is that... Yeah, we'll just roll with that. How about that? No, guys. But yeah, we've got an interview set up for Friday. It's going to be with an addiction doctor. He was actually my doctor for some time here in where I live, and I trust this guy. He is definitely going to, if anybody has any questions, please bring those along. We're going to try to keep the subject to, what he knows. So just remember that. I mean, it's, he's here for that reason, so people can get a little bit of, a better educated view from somebody other than somebody that's just been through it, right? Somebody that's been to school for this. That's, yeah. But I trust him. It's going to be at noon on Friday on the West Coast, 3 o'clock on the East Coast. Obviously, he's a doctor, so he is up, and he is up early, so he doesn't do late stuff, and that's why. So for now, we're going to schedule it for Friday at that time. His name's Dr. Jetmore. You guys want to? I'm sure you could probably Google him. You'll find him. He's a really good dude, and he's down to earth. That's what I like about him a lot. He really does believe in the group setting. This is where it becomes important, right? When we're talking about things and we're talking about physical stuff, that's a total different thing than just the mental stuff that can be helped with group. And there's so many stats out there now, and there's more coming in every day because this just really hasn't been studied enough to give us a really good number of, who's in recovery and who's not. How they get there? I mean, all these things. We got some numbers, but it's the longer it goes, the more accurate those numbers become, and he'll be able to share a lot of that because he is my county's health official. So, with that being said, he's definitely a very, very valid opinion on anything like this, and he really likes what we're doing here because he recognizes the group setting is really what fixes people. It's, we'll get that moment of clarity through the medicated assistance and all that, and we'll stay there, as long as we need it. And, he is not under the mindset, from what I've gathered from talking to him, that, there needs to be a time frame on people coming off of any of this stuff. He's actually said things like, you got to think about it like a heart pill. Would you just, this is the stuff that, doctors are now talking about. It's encouraging because people are starting to understand it. And I really do hope that people show up for that, guys. Tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell your daddy's friends, whatever. But try to get them here, and it'll be here, like I said, Friday at noon. And I get it if you guys can't make it because of whatever. I mean, I get it. We're trying to give you guys a couple days notice here because we just got this set up today. We've been working on this for a couple months.
You know what? I got to do this because it's so right along the time of what we're talking about. Niall, he is going to give you the name and the time again in 1 second, but there was an exchange that went on between Yahusha's disciple, the Amy, and Seven's son. Amy said that she's still struggling with needing to use Suboxone for recovery. She still feels like it's not, she feels like she should be strong enough to do it without it. And I just want to chime in on that and say that as for me, I'm so proud that I'm taking Suboxone, I can't explain it. But that's me. I loved what Steve said. Absolutely loved it. Steve said, if you were using a spoon or a knife to cook something, would you feel guilty for using it? Of course not, because it's a tool that you would use in order to cook. Here's the thing. I've made a choice. And the choice that I have made is to not do drugs. Right? Now, there are people who believe that Suboxone is a drug. That's the truth. There are people that believe the world is flat. If everyone is entitled to their opinion, regardless of whether or not it's solid. And the truth of the matter is that I don't care how much of this stuff I eat, I don't get high. And Yahusha's disciple, you and I have had a discussion on this. You don't get high on it. So you're taking a substance that doesn't get you high to avoid one that does. Kick that around for a minute.
Yeah, just let that swim around in your brain.
Marinate that one for a minute. Could you give him the name and the time again on that one? Because I think he missed it.
Yeah, for sure. The name is Dr. David Jetmore. And you guys, like I said, you can look him up. He is the Wayne County health official. And the show will be on at 3 Eastern, 12 West Coast. We're still kicking around. We really want to do it live. That's best case scenario for everybody. And the reason why is because that way, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask.
Apparently they can't hear me when I'm talking.
Just got that text.
Really?
Yeah.
Somebody give me a 5 for 5 in there, would you?
Apparently they can hear you, but not me.
Okay. Well, hold on 1 second. Let's see. Go ahead and talk. Say a few things there.
All right. Listen. While I'm talking, I may as well say to Amy. Amy, you know what? You can be hard on yourself. If there's no point. Truthfully, here's the thing. I know what your beliefs are in terms of spirituality, right? For real. I know the things that you believe, and it's not a religious show, but knowing full well what you believe and what I believe, there are people who get cancer, right? I met a few who say that I'm not going to do radiation or chemo because God's going to cure me. Well, I'm of the firm belief that God uses chemo and radiation to cure people, right? There's a reason that stuff is here. Not wanting to be cured from cancer by just gritting your teeth and saying, I'm going to beat this tumor. For a great many people on the planet, you can grit your teeth all you want and say, I'm going to beat this addiction. And for some of us, that's not a possibility. It isn't. But it takes a tremendous amount of strength to admit that. That's where the strength comes in. The strength is where you say, I can't do it without help. I can't stay sober without help. You can go back to keep trying. I know a ton of people who do. And they'll say things like, well, I'm not really sober if I'm using that stuff. Well, no, you're not really sober while you're using heroin, claiming that you're going to try to get sober one of these days. Suboxone will absolutely make you sober. This is why government agencies have made laws that you can't fire someone for taking it. That's kind of odd, isn't it? You can't fire somebody if they drop hot for Suboxone but have a prescription for it. They can't say to you, you can't work at this job if you're on Suboxone, because they know full well it's a non-issue. But I understand. I really do. My hope is that you just you spend some time thinking about it, because the strength that it's taking for you to actually stop taking that crap and start taking Suboxone, that's what you need to concentrate on. That's strength. It really is.
Yeah, 100% on that one.
Back up with audio. All right.
Yeah, we got it. But yeah,
Niall, I will type out the name of that. He would like you to type out the name of the doctor so that it's in the permanent record.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's going to grab that. And you know what, people, as Mark was saying, this is not just a doctor that has has some experience with medical assisted treatment. This guy designed the program, and he is now I can't remember the term, but he's the doctor for the entire county or whatever. He's the
Wayne County health official.
There you go.
He's the one that makes the decision whether or not in my county we wear masks and stuff like that. That's the level he's at. He's not and that's what's so encouraging, because this isn't such a sometimes it's harder to get a old school doctor to buy into what we're talking about, right? And to get him where we're at. And he is a little older. So, for him to do that, and the reason why he does it is because he believes in it. It's not, I can tell you right now, he doesn't have to do that if it's about the money thing. I can almost guarantee, I don't know his financial situation or whatever, but I can pretty much guarantee that he's not going to, because he started as an ear, nose, and throat doctor, just to give you guys a little bit of a background, because this field in addiction recovery is fairly new.
Yes.
So these guys have had to go through some training. These guys have had to do whatever they do. And, he stays up with the laws. He really, he understands to a level that typically you would almost feel like you're talking to another person that's in recovery. That's what I'm saying. He's really almost that, but he'll tell you, he can't completely understand it, but he knows how it all works. Right. And that is the first step. It's a big step into getting everybody onto the same page. And
I think that's probably why he believes as much as he does too. Because when you're in this, and Michael, the counselor, I'm sure would back me up on this as well. It's one thing to hear about what this substance can do. It is another thing to watch it. And when you see people in recovery who try to get sober without, and there are people who can. Don't get me wrong, people. There's a ton of people that can, and then there are some that can't. I mean, if it were just a matter of willpower. Look, 30 years I tried, right? And this stuff was the magic bullet.
Right.
Go ahead, Mark.
I just think that if you feel like that you're not strong enough or whatever, and you still think that staying on it long term is an issue, well, then try to do without it. Just see how it makes you feel, and see if you can even make it. that's something that you can do. I mean, you'll have the Suboxone still with you. So if you find that weak spot and you say, I'm going to go do this now, you don't have to go do that. You can go in there and wherever you keep your meds and get it, right? So what I'm saying is I don't, for long term, listen, I don't know the answer to that either. I don't think the doctor could give you an answer to that because I do think it's a very individualized walk that people go down, and some people can. Some people can get off. That's the best case scenario. I mean, we all say that. None of us want to be on any kind of medication if we don't have to be. There's a lot of stuff that he can really he'll be able to shed some light on some things from an educated point of view. A formally educated point of view. And don't get me wrong, he really likes what we're doing here. He told me that.
That's very cool too.
Yeah. And it's cool to hear that because, he sees that we're helping, and that's the goal. The goal is to help people, get people off of whatever we're doing. And we don't just limit ourselves to that kind of medicated assisted treatment. We talk about a whole host of things here, guys. That's why we really struggle with whether we should call this living your best life or recovery, right? Because it's kind of both. And I really do think that, we get somebody in on that end of it. It could help answer some questions for people.
I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be a good thing for all of us. Every time I talk to him, I learn something new. And I'm not even kidding. I mean, when we were going through all this C+ math stuff, we did a group through Zoom calls once a month, and the provider had to be there, which is the doctor, right? And the group place I'm with now, it's statewide, so there's a bunch of different ones. And, so I got lucky enough, he was my county's health official. So we were actually getting, he was sharing that information and showing us how all this stuff worked and all that. I'm not going to get into any of that. I'm just saying that he is well studied. He doesn't say anything that he doesn't mean. And he's fair. And that's the biggest thing, I think. He's fair. If you're messing up, he's going to tell you, right? So, and that's kind of what we try to do here. And like I said, I've learned a lot of stuff from just being exposed to him for the short amount of time, right? A year. That's it. I was in recovery at a different place that instead of trying to, keep you there, it was almost like they were trying to kick you out, right? And so, yeah.
Run you off.
Yeah, and again, guys, I'm not trying to push this on anybody. I don't think Tommy is either. I think it's going to be a positive thing. I think we can learn. I think we can listen to what he's going to talk about. And again, it's just going to be a back and forth natural kind of conversation. It's nothing like a set thing of questions. Unless we want to do that, we can. But at the same time, we need to understand that he's going to come here, give his time. And I really do think it's beneficial for anybody that can catch it to be here. And I'm not just saying that for any kind of
while I don't push anybody on medical assisted treatment versus something else, I would like everybody to check this out. I think it's nice just to hear a doctor talk about addiction, all of his expertise. It won't just be about medical assisted stuff. You're going to hear a lot of stuff that it's definitely worth tuning in. Hope everybody's going to check it out. I'm pretty excited about it. That's very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Yep. Very, very cool. Well, I think we are at about the top of the hour. We went a little bit late, but we started a little late, so I think it works out in the long run. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. Again, thank everybody for the thoughts and the prayers on my lung stuff. I really appreciate that. You all are the best. You really are. So we will be back. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We will be back tomorrow night, same bat time, same bat channel. Between now and then, people, one assignment. reach out and try to save somebody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And of course, as promised, this is a cat in a basket. Have a good night, everybody.